Excellencies, dear colleagues and friends, on behalf of the Order of Malta, I would like to thank Ambassador Therese Pictet and the Geneva Centre for Human Rights Advancement and Global Dialogue for inviting our permanent mission to participate in this promising panel discussion. I am honored to participate in this distinguished panel. At the outset, allow me to briefly introduce the institution I represent and its position on the international stage. Founded in the 11th century, the Sovereign Order of Malta is a lay religious order of the Catholic Church. Its mission is based on the inspiring principles of witnessing the faith and service to the poor and the suffering. Across the world, the order is dedicated to the preservation of life and human dignity and the care of all those in need, regardless of their religions, their beliefs, and their origins, as coded in the Order's constitution. It is neutral, impartial, and apolitical. By definition, we cooperate with different faith and religiously based actors, including Islamic institutions in various regions of the world. Today, the Order of Malta is active in 120 countries and has established diplomatic relations with 106 states, a number of which are Muslim countries. As a subject of international public law, it was associated from the very beginning in the elaboration of international humanitarian law encoded in the Geneva Conventions and as a permanent observer to the United Nations in the development of human rights instruments. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, together with the Geneva Conventions and the international legal instruments adopted since, have become the foundation of common societal understanding and behavior. Furthermore, a number of regional instruments, such as the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, the Arab Charter on Human Rights, the European Convention on Human Rights, and the ASEAN Human Rights Declaration have confirmed this evolution. Article 7 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights stipulates, and I quote, "All are equal before the law and are entitled without any discrimination to equal protection of the law," unquote. This implies that the base of equal citizenship rights is non-discrimination. That means equal treatment of all citizens implemented through legislation that guarantees every citizen's equal rights in all spheres of society. Therefore, citizenship becomes the criterion of equal participation possibilities in the management of society as a whole, and its protection a key tool for identity, integration, and solidarity. In order to strengthen equal citizenship rights, it is essential that minorities fully participate in the activities and decision-making process of their communities, so as to avoid becoming a subgroup and thus being marginalized, which in turn jeopardizes social harmony. This applies as well to internally displaced and stateless persons, whose human and citizenship rights are often neglected and even denied. Cultural and religious diversity is a fundamental component of any well-functioning society, in which faith-based minorities have a special role to play. Across the world today, Christians, Muslims, and many other religious communities experience intolerance, hatred, discrimination, and persecution. According to the Pew Research Center, over 75% of the world's population lives in areas with severe religious restrictions. Over 50% of all countries have some limitation or restriction placed upon religious minorities. In 25%, some or all religious minorities are illegal, and in 24% of countries have placed restrictions on building, leasing, or repairing places of worship. Because some of the most restrictive countries are very populous, more than 5 billion people are living in countries with high government restrictions on religion or high social hostilities involving religion, the brunt of which often falls on religious minorities. Such is the situation that in many parts of the world, the existence of religious minorities is severely weakened and depends on the respect of their full rights. Christian communities in particular are victims of persecution in many countries. With this fact in mind, Some member states are considering introducing the term of Christianophobia in the oncoming resolution of the Human Rights Council. This would not mean, however, that such a term is directed against any other religion. It is, of course, a responsibility of the state not only to implement the international norms it has ratified, but also to create the national legislation on which a real equality in citizenship rights is guaranteed. In practice, national authorities, including political parties, should foster participation, tolerance, and dialogue within communities. At the same time, religious leaders also have a clear responsibility, which can be exercised through different channels, such as inter- and intra-faith dialogue and cooperation between religious and political components of society. An example in this field is the Central African Republic, where structural violence was blamed on so-called religious conflicts when, in fact, it was much more due to a lack of rule of law and good governance. In response, the Cardinal Archbishop of Bangui, the chief imam, and the Protestant leader of the country formed an interfaith peace platform with practical components to monitor peace and reconciliation. In the international context, it is interesting to note that there are many such ongoing dialogues. A most recent example is the resumption last month of high-level discussions between the Holy See and the Al-Azhar University in Cairo. One of the Order of Malta's most moving experiences in interfaith cooperation is in Lebanon, a country of 17 different officially recognized religious communities, where veiled Muslim nurses in our clinics proudly wear the cross of the order on their chests. This is a picture that by itself constitutes our main response to fanatism and extremism, while illustrating the need to translate our good words into action. As it is unrealistic to imagine the disappearance of the concept of minority as such, it is essential to promote religious and faith literacy at all levels of society. Initiatives relating to interreligious and interfaith dialogue and cooperation need, therefore, to be inclusive and encouraged at the grassroots level. This can be achieved through human rights education and training on minority rights, non-discrimination and equality, freedom of religion and belief. Religious authorities have a particular responsibility in the field of education from the earliest age on. Teachers need to affirm respect for other religions by emphasizing the peaceful, tolerant, and conciliatory contents of their religion. As a community, we should consider offering scholarships to children of all religions to help eradicate interfaith conflict through education and the promotion of dialogue between different cultures and faith. All these measures, whether potential or concrete, should be part of the roadmap which defines the way forward towards the World Conference proposed in the concept note before us. The agenda should clearly illustrate the interface between positive law and religion in the sense that Christian and Muslim religious leaders be encouraged to promote the principle of non-discrimination, both by supporting existing international and domestic legal instruments and mechanisms, and by reaffirming this principle in common declarations, actions, and approaches based on their respective religious teachings. Another objective of the World Conference should be to propose practical recommendations to close the huge gap that exists between the adoption by states of legal instruments and the effective implementation on the ground. Citizens need to see and feel that their rights are being respected and that they have the means to enact them. In conclusion, I would like to quote from the address given by the Order of Malta's Foreign Minister at the symposium Religions Together for Humanitarian Action, held here at the Palais des Nations in May 2015 in preparation for the World Humanitarian Summit. And I quote, "Religious motivation can induce violence when separated from moral content and conflicts may contain religious elements. However, They are always driven by cultural, ethnic, territorial, and other factors, such as external pressures. Perhaps the answer to conflicts with a religious element is not less religion, but more of religion's peaceful, non-violent content as a rich source of reconciliation, social tolerance, devotion, humanitarian commitment, empowerment, and peace-building, unquote. Let us therefore, in our further discussions, aim to identify a model of inclusive citizenship rights that is firmly based on the values promoted by Christianity and Islam. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.